Hi, my name is Madison and I played Juliet with the Colorado Shakespeare Festival.
Hi, my name is Rachel Cendrick and I played Juliet in Studio 208.
We perform at the Mary Rapon Theater at the University of Colorado Boulder. It is a Greek-style amphitheater that seats 1,004, and it sits at the base of the Flatiron Mountains.
Studio 208 is so small, which is awesome. It's an incredibly intimate, really flexible space.
So it's this humongous open-air environment. It's majestic. It requires a lot of presence. But we're also mic'd while we perform, so we can whisper on stage and the person in the very last row can hear everything we say. It's a very electric space to perform in.
And it's typically played either in the round or in like a thrust setting.
Our director, Christopher Duvall, had a vision for the show that I would equate to a firecracker. Things were bright, things burnt quickly, it was loud, and then it was over.
So small, which allowed us to go a really realistic and naturalistic approach versus, so somewhere like, say, Organ Shakes, right? When you're playing to a massive house, it's gonna look a lot different than when you're in a small, intimate setting.
He was really interested in the immediacy of this story, how these characters are tumbling into these new circumstances and having to make decisions before they can think through it all the way to the end.
An audience is literally at times like 5 feet away from you. And so when you ask a question, you can ask the question. You know, you're looking into somebody's eyes instead of this just distant void. You see them look back at you and you see them wrestle with your question and they give you feedback.
They're sort of tumbling into themselves and into each other.
And it's a glorious thing. And it also just allows, as an actor, to have a little bit more subtlety and nuance, because an audience is going to pick up on that because they're closer.
He also wanted it to be very passionate, and that came out in the costuming. We used these vibrant, saturated colors. I was in this hot pink fuchsia gown with like floral skinny jeans, and Romeo had on this forest green leather jacket with like a loose poet shirt. And so there was a lot of like Baz Luhrmann funk meets Elizabethan romance that made for a cacophony of a world.
The set was really minimal. Again, you don't have a lot of space in there, and so you don't really want it taken up by a whole lot of set. A lot of it was just cubes and structure, just to give really the appearance of the main thing, which was the balcony. Okay, so the thing that launched this aria.
Juliet meets this stranger and they have an electric connection.
In the beginning of the scene, Romeo knows that Juliet is obviously there. Juliet doesn't know that Romeo's watching, and she goes for so long without speaking because she enters in this flurry of like, oh my gosh, but she doesn't speak. And so we have to wonder why, you know? And so the way we chose to do it is, instead of this kind of like slow entrance for Juliet, I mean, I came in hot, as if I literally had just come out of that party, and it was like, that was the first time that I had gotten alone to be able to be like, you know, I could breathe because I was by myself. And it was as if I hadn't been able to process.
I mean, the first words they ever say to each other form a sonnet that ends in a kiss. So they're soulmates, right?
Because I had been, you know, with the nurse and my mother. All these people were around me. And so for the first time, I'm like on the balcony, like, what just happened to me? And that was really effective to fill the time during Romeo's speech, and it gave him a lot to work off of too, because I was up there, you know, just feeling it.
But then she finds out right after that he belongs to the family that she's always been taught to hate. More than hate, to despise. So on the one hand, there's this really awesome guy, and then there's the problem with his name. They don't go together. What is she supposed to do with that?
Anyway, and so my last detail before, because she does speak eventually. She says, I, me, and then eventually she starts Romeo. And the thing that got that to just bubble out, I literally envisioned, I called it my container of butterflies. And it was like it was in me and they were kind of flirting the whole time. And then all of a sudden, I mean, I literally wrote in my script, I said, unleash the butterflies. And it was truly like I couldn't contain them anymore and they just burst out of me because I was so in love and it started Romeo. And so that was the detail that got the aria going.
As Juliet starts thinking out loud, she realizes that the name Romeo Montague is just a label. That it doesn't have anything to do with what's actually inside, and that a clump of letters can't define who a person actually is.
So the big deal or discovery for me in this aria was right after I had a line about, I compared the situation I'm in with Romeo's name to a rose. And I say, well, a rose by any other name would smell as sweet, right? And I am making this point to the audience. And it's like it clicks. It's like I'm making this point, and as I'm making it, I realize what a good point it is. And it's so Romeo would if he were not named Romeo. And it was like this discovery propelled. And so there's these lines that eventually lead into the line, Romeo, doff thy name. Because that's it. Doff thy name, you know? It's like, oh my gosh, it's your name. It's the problem. And I knew that from the beginning because I was talking about what's in a name. And it's suddenly there's the answer. Doff thy name. And for thy name, take all of me. I'm here. Oh! And so that, if we could see, I think as the audience, if you could see that discovery in Juliet, that we can really easily track her mind and it propels her into that next line, take all of me. Because that's the solution.
I think that if Juliet had known from the beginning where her story would end with Romeo, that she still would have chosen him. Because their love was that good.
Going off of that line, Romeo, doff thy name. And for thy name, I say, which is no part of thee, take all of myself. And that's, well, I think she would have kept going, except Romeo says, I'm here, and then it leads to fun chaos.
This discovery means that they get to choose to love each other.
But she means it. Take all of myself. And it's like, really? After one night? And that's the actor's job, is yes. Yes. After one encounter, she means it. Take all of myself. And Romeo and Juliet spend not a lot of time together throughout the course of the show and throughout their lives. And it's so crucial that they just know. And as an actor, that has to be so apparent. And that one line, doff thy name and for thy name, which is no part of thee, take all of me.
They get to choose to shake off these labels that have been handed down to them. That they get to choose to shake off the family feud that says they can't be together, and they continue to break rules for the rest of the story that would keep them apart, even unto death.
And in that moment, does she know that that's going to mean her life? No. How could she? But I think if you were to ask her in that moment, would she be willing? The answer is yes. And that fuels the rest of the show.
Romeo, Romeo, wherefore art thou Romeo? Deny thy father and refuse thy name. Or if thou wilt not, be but sworn my love, and I'll no longer be a Capulet. 'Tis but thy name that is my enemy. Thou art thyself, though not a Montague. What is Montague? It is neither hand nor foot, nor arm nor face, nor any other part belonging to a man. Oh, be some other name. What's in a name? That which we call a rose by any other word would smell as sweet. So Romeo would, were he not Romeo called, retain that dear perfection which he owes without that title. Oh, Romeo, doff thy name, and for that name which is no part of thee, take all myself.
Ah, Romeo, Romeo, wherefore art thou Romeo? Deny thy father, and refuse thy name, or if thou wilt not, be but sworn my love, and I'll no longer be a Capulet. Ah, 'tis but thy name, it is my enemy. Thou art thyself, though not a Montague, and... What's Montague? It is neither hand, nor foot, nor arm, nor face, nor any other part belonging to a man. Oh, be some other name. Oh, what's in a name? That which we call a rose, by any other name would smell as sweet. So Romeo would, were he not Romeo called, retain that dear perfection which he owes. Without that title, Romeo, doff thy name, and for thy name, which is no part of thee, take all myself. Ah! Madison is a master of pitch. Oh my gosh. So if you listen, you hear it so many times where she uses pitch to articulate what she's saying, and it makes it so clear as a listener.
Rachel, your Juliet was so much fun. Oh my gosh, I just had such a great time watching her. I think that you really embodied what it is to be a young girl who falls in love and is thrown into a world that she really knows nothing about, but knows that it is full of feeling.
Wow, so smart. So if you listen in the beginning, when she says, Romeo, Romeo, wherefore art thou Romeo? And then she goes into, thou art thyself, though not a Montague. And she took the time, you can tell, she had a real good detail image in there on thyself. I don't know what she was picturing, but thou art, it was almost as if she couldn't even describe how amazing he was. It was just, you are you, thyself. And then when it contrasted, though not a Montague, it was so easy to see that contrast because she had such a great detail on the word thyself. I didn't even think about it. I just bulldozed through to, thou art thyself, though not a Montague. So that was so effective.
And you were just like coursing with energy and with passion, and I loved your like freedom with the rhythm of the language, and I loved what you did with the Shakespeare's O, like O Romeo, right from the very beginning. I could tell that it was going to be such a physical piece because that O became just like a grunt or almost a growl, like you just wanted this person so much. And I love what that does for the story.
So like right off the bat, or if thou will not be but sworn my love, and I'll no longer be a Capulet. She goes to the highest register on Capulet and then drops it down for 'tis but thy name that is. And so we hear the emphasis on name just because of the way that she set up the pitch for us. Or again on hand, nor foot, nor arm, nor face, nor any other part belonging to a man. She built that ladder for us so she could drop it down on nor any other part. And so we hear it. We don't even have to try to listen for it because she did it for us. And then especially on the end, retain that dear perfection which he owes without that title. Title was the highest point. Oh, doff thy name. And so we heard doff. It was a decision, right? That's what that ladder led her to, a decision. And we heard it because of her pitch. Oh.
I loved what you did with mapping out, kind of discovering what Montague wasn't. And it all started when you had your hand up and you saw your hand. And I felt like that realization of the fact that Montague is nothing physical, like really traveled through your body into your mind and changed the way that you saw things.
So if you listen, she uses almost the fastest rhythm, tempo, and the whole speech is at the very end when she says, "And for thy name which is no part of thee," it's like the fastest she's gone the whole time, and it builds us up to when she says, "Take all myself."
So it's really cool using the like outside world to inform your inner one. That was a fun, like unexpected take for me.
And it was so great because we hadn't heard her go that fast so far. And it was at the end, and it ramped us up into this final landing. Take all myself. Duh.
I think you gave Juliet so much bubbly, full of butterflies life. And thank you so much for your work. I love it.